Hello there, everyone. This is Miriam Gaucho-Bongiovanni, a holistic life coach and mind-body practitioner. And today I'm going to have a chat with a fellow holistic life coach and mind-body practitioner with a similar background to mine, and that's Scotty Styles. So the interesting thing is that Scotty and I decided to become mind-body practitioners after having been through a journey that's rather similar. And that was a journey out of chronic pain. Now, chronic pain is a huge problem in this world. So many people suffer from all kinds of chronic symptoms and stay stuck with those symptoms for long periods of time. And unfortunately, up until this day, we find that there isn't enough education and there isn't enough information on how to actually overcome these symptoms. In fact, some people believe that chronic means that symptoms are there to stay, whereas in reality, chronic means that there's this negative pattern in the body. And in most cases, you can actually do something to overcome it, which is what we'll be discussing in this chat. So, Scotty, would you like to introduce yourself to the audience and say something about what got you here?
Of course. Thanks, Miriam. Hello, everyone. My name is Scotty Styles from How to Heal Chronic Pain. And yeah, I'm also a graduate from the MindBody Food Institute, which was a great certification to have as a pain elimination coach and mind-body practitioner. I'm just super motivated to share and discuss topics on this. And yeah, happy to delve into normalizing TMS and opening people's mind to how this could be true for them and how that their pain really could be mind-body neuroplastic and not structurally caused.
Yes, in fact, you got me thinking last time, Scotty, when we first connected, that not everyone is aware that they may have mind-body symptoms, when in reality, it happens to everyone at some point in life, right? We feel some sort of distress and we get a symptom. So the most common example being like a tension headache. So you're having a really bad day, and by the end of it, you're left with this headache. And for most people, that's accepted. They say, oh, yes, it's because of that stress. But with other kinds of chronic symptoms, like intense physical symptoms, people are less aware that it's still the mind-body connection at play.
Exactly. Yeah, we accept like, a stomach ache if we're nervous for a speech or presentation, like that's all very normal, but it goes away. So we don't think anything of it. We accept that, okay, I was nervous. I felt that, butterflies in the stomach and it went away. But then when we have, something like back pain, we think, oh, what did I just do to myself?
Yes. Yeah, you couldn't have put it better. That's the thing. I think there are some symptoms that people feel they're obviously mind-body, and some symptoms that feel so physical because they are still physical, that people have a hard time understanding that it's still their emotional state that's causing these symptoms. And last time I had this thought, this memory. So basically, my first mind-body symptom, or the first one that I remember, was regular stomach ache when I was 7 years old. And I had been complaining about the stomach ache with my parents for a while, and they took me to the doctor. And the doctor told them it's psychosomatic, there's nothing wrong with her. So even back in the day, medical practitioners were aware, obviously, of the mind-body connection, which was known as like psychosomatic at the time. And he told my parents that, and they said like, okay, so there's nothing to do. And just knowing that on its own, they didn't really know what to tell me and how to explain to me. Luckily, I still had an idea why that was happening. And their having told me that there's nothing wrong with you actually helped me get over that worry. It helped me get over that symptom, and the distractions of childhood came along, and eventually the stomachache went away. But I also knew at the time, when they told me that there was nothing wrong, I knew why I was having those stomach pains, and it was because of an upsetting traumatic experience I had had with an illness the year before. So I had been sick, and I had experienced it as traumatizing. So I was afraid that I would be sick again, and hence the stomachache, because it reminded me of being sick. So even then I knew, kind of. I couldn't explain it, but I knew. And it happens to so many people in different ways, and then they forget about it because they heal, or they just get on with life until the next stressor comes along, and they might either get the same symptom all over again or a totally new symptom. And that's, again, a mind-body symptom.
Yeah, I find it really interesting that you said even back then, they would call it psychosomatic, but in our society, we have this sort of negative connotation of that being sort of imagined or made up. But really what that means is like you have real physical symptoms in the body, but it's just generated by the emotional centers of the brain. And so, yeah, it's really important to normalize that idea, because, psychosomatic does not mean imaginary. All pain is real. Like you feel it, you actually feel it in your body. So, fortunately, maybe for you, when you were a kid, you made that, emotional association, like, oh, this happened when I was stressed, and you were able to sort of bypass that, faulty logic of somebody saying like, oh, you're just imagining it, or you're making it up. And I think that's where a lot of people get stuck. They think, okay, I've been told my pain is psychosomatic, and well, then therefore it's not valid. For me on my healing journey, I had that happen as well, and I found Sarno, Dr. Sarno, who talks about TMS. Yeah, and then I was all excited about it, like, oh my God, I finally found the solution, because I had done everything physical, chiro, osteo, you name it. This is what people do. They try to find everything they can outside of themselves. And then I discovered Sarno, but I had a friend, a peer, say to me, oh, so then there's nothing wrong with you. Your pain's just made up. And I felt discredited. I felt like it wasn't valid, and I felt defensive. And I thought, well, no, but it actually hurts. And so it sort of minimized it in my mind, how others would perceive it if I were to go down this road of accepting TMS as a diagnosis. So unfortunately, that was actually a roadblock to my healing. And I decided, and then I kind of, went down the medical paradigm again, thinking, okay, well, my MRI did say this and this and that. And it took another almost 2 years to finally go back to the mind-body approach. It was, by luck that I found a Sarno book in a used bookstore, and I thought, there it is again. I have nothing to lose. Let's just, yeah, it was a sign. Totally. I grabbed it, and that was it. And then I gave up everything else, and that's, unfortunately, we do have to sometimes tune out the noise, of society and this sort of paradigm, and of the medical model, and really make that shift to say, okay, this is an inner journey, and I'm going, to not listen to the noise, and not believe that there's anything structurally wrong, because there isn't.
In fact, when you mentioned your friend having instilled some doubt in you, I remember now that when I discovered Dr. Sarno's books myself, I didn't tell anyone what I was doing, because I had the feeling that people would say like, something similar to what your friend said, or they would say something like, oh, but that's woo-woo, that won't work. So I didn't want anyone's opinion to interfere with my recovery. And the thing is, I had had so many symptoms by then, and they were so intense, and I'd already been disappointed several times when I had tried to treat them conventionally, that I said, like, either this works or nothing will, really, because I've tried everything. So now let me really try to integrate this. And by integrating this, it means eventually shedding all that doubt that there's a structural problem or an illness, and really accepting that the body may respond to your emotional state with pain and other symptoms, because that's what it is. It's a response. So some people respond to trauma or stressors through addiction, for example, or through depression. Other people respond to it through physical symptoms. And it's kind of the same. It's a response.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I resonate with that for sure. Other people on our journeys can really shift things. So, I also, when I was, had found that book again and read it, I wasn't telling everybody, because you wouldn't get the right reaction from people necessarily. But I think I had a stronger belief the second time around, because I was learning more about the science behind it, because you can't deny that. You can't deny the science. There's logic and science to back it up. And
That's
so that is really what is the nail in the coffin, right? And then also leaning on the success stories. That's another way. If you can see that other people before you have done it, then it's true for you. We're not just we're not completely unique in the sense that one person can't heal. We're all human beings, and it's our birthright to heal. That we're self-regenerating organisms that are meant to heal. So, and we know that in injuries, if you were truly injured, it would heal in 3 months or so. So, when it's lasting longer than that, there's something more going on, and it's for the majority of chronic pain, it's going to be stemming from the brain. Yeah.
Yes, definitely. And you mentioned the science behind it, and there's still more and more research that is being done. For example, they are noticing that people with chronic pain have certain regions of the brain that are more activated than people without chronic pain. And then if they were to take another MRI, when these people recover from chronic pain, they would actually see a change in that region of the brain again. So the brain is changing. There are physical changes in the brain, and probably also in the body. And this is why I really believe that education is key, because unless you really understand what's happening, at least the basis, unless you understand that mind and body are connected, they're not separate, it's going to be difficult to heal. It's going to be difficult to believe that this intense pain is actually originating from the brain. You're going to be thinking that you're injured, or that you're ill, or that your body is damaged. And that's often the assumption, especially with things like back pain. Back pain has such a bad reputation, right? I remember from when we were young, they told us to be careful with our school bags, not to carry too many books, to leave the books in the locker, lest we hurt our backs. They were checking our backs for abnormalities and sending us to doctors if they found, something slightly abnormal. So this was the message that we got, like, oh, the back could be a problem. So no wonder that when when someone gets a sharp bout of back pain due to a stressful event or an upsetting event, this person, the first thing that he'll think about is not, oh, that event happened, I'm upset, and therefore this is why I have back pain. The first thing that person will think about will be like, oh no, my back is damaged, it's gone out. I need to do something about it. And that kicks off the journey of visiting, doctors and chiropractors and physical therapists. And the thing is, if the symptom is TMS or mind-body syndrome, most people don't get relief from these treatments because they treat the physical, they treat the symptom and not the origin, right?
Exactly. And it really does take that courage to tune out that noise, to say, okay, well, that didn't work for me. Doing that over and over again isn't going to help. We've already tried that. Einstein would say insanity is doing something over and over again and expecting different results. So
I love that quote.
Yeah. And so for people on the fence, then, well, what do you have to lose here? You've tried everything else. There are no negative side effects to doing mind body work. as long as you've ruled out anything life-threatening or very serious from a doctor, for the most part, doctors will refer you to a chiropractor or a specialist of that kind, but they merely serve to just medicate or find relief of symptoms and not actually find the cause. So this is actually exciting news to hear from your doctor. No, there's nothing wrong with you. And so, okay, there's your free pass. Boom, I'm out the door and I'm going to go do my mind body work. And that's fine because I'm fine.
You got me thinking, because this is a subject that upsets me a little bit. Some people are offended when they hear, oh, there's nothing wrong with you. Maybe it's just stress. And it's because maybe the doctor isn't able to explain or doesn't have the time to explain to the patient what's really happening. So they take it as if it's all in their heads and they feel offended and they feel like victims that they're not getting the help. I think what helped me personally progress through this journey quite fast in comparison to other people was that I'd already had a lot of disappointment. And when I learned about TMS, I was so relieved that this was it. So I wasn't offended, that it was just, it was in my mind. It wasn't just in my mind, as we said, it's also in the body. But I was open to the idea. I didn't reject it. And I think openness is so important. I mean, even for those of you who are watching us and who may have the occasional symptom, let's say they have acid reflux now and then, or they have occasional back pain that crops up, to really think about this connection, because it could apply to you and you're not even aware. You're not even aware that these occasional symptoms are mind-body in origin. You think that, your stomach is a little bit weak, or your back is a bit weak, or whatever. But it could just be this pattern, this chronic mind-body pattern.
Yeah, especially if it's more coming and going. People aren't thinking like, oh, this is not chronic, right? They're thinking, oh, it's just something I ate, and and then they're in this vicious cycle of blaming the physical for their symptoms. Yeah, and I like what you said about sort of the idea of you were excited that there was finally a solution because you tried everything else. And this often happens to people because they've reached a point of desperation. They've tried so many things, so they're willing to try anything. But the good thing is it's the best thing. But unfortunately, it would be better if people found out about this sooner, before going years even of trying all the physical things. So that belief and that mindset shift is so key, because and it's hard to do because it can take time, but it might not just happen overnight. But I think just even starting and seeing like, okay, I'm going to open the door just a little bit, and that is your entry point to sort of to seeing that this can work for you. Just getting a little bit, sort of suspending your disbelief, like you're going to see a play, right? You go to see a play, you watch the actors on the stage, and you buy the story. You're like, okay, oh, I really believing this, and just sort of lean into it a little bit to see if this can work for you. And again, relying on the science and logic and the fact that other people before you have done it. So this is the how we can accelerate that belief and look for evidence as well. When we look for evidence that this could be true for us, we start seeing it everywhere. You're like, exactly. Oh wait, I did feel stress and I do feel more pain. Yeah.
Evidence is so important. And this is one of the things we do as mind body practitioners as well. I mean, I do it with my clients and in my courses, and I'm sure you also do it. You get people to look for the evidence. You get people to notice these coincidences, which are not really coincidences, between, let's say, flare-ups and what's happening in your life. You get people to really be aware of exceptions. Why did they have a pain-free day or a pain-free month? What was happening that month that might have been different? Were they on holiday? You start to look at all of these things, and suddenly all the pieces of the puzzle will come together, and you will be more sure that this is it. And when you're more sure, you will feel much more empowered. And that's already a shift. So that's already going to make you feel better. more relaxed, less worried about the symptoms. And that's part of the healing journey, when you're going to be less worried about the symptoms and more empowered. That's basically, the majority of the healing journey. That's what you need to do to feel empowered and to know that, there's nothing wrong with you.
Exactly. I think one of the greatest things I've ever heard you say is this idea of feeling empowered, and even sort of saying like feeling greater than your symptoms, right? You have the symptoms and they trick you into feeling despair and hope and feeling hopeless. But when we can realize that, oh no, there is nothing wrong, and we can feel greater than that, we can pull ourselves out of the trenches. And this is this sort of optimism and feeling greater than the symptoms, and not allowing them to weigh us down, can actually allow for healing.
Yeah, definitely. And I mean, a lot of people ask, but how can I feel, how can I get rid of the fear of symptoms? Because as we know in neuroscience, fear makes symptoms worse. So when you respond to symptoms with fear, you're going to feel them more because you're giving them negative attention. So they would ask, but how can I get rid of the fear? And I always say, start with knowledge, because if you really know that your symptoms are mind-body in origin, then you would get rid of the fear of having a serious disease, for example. You will get rid of the fear of having a permanently injured body. And that already will reduce some of the fear. At least for me, knowing that this pain, although very real and very intense, but doesn't mean anything for my, future, that it wouldn't disable me, that made me feel empowered, and, my fear levels just went down. So it always starts with knowledge, I think. And it can get tricky because we have different beliefs from childhood, and it's hard to let go of the idea that there's still something wrong. But with time, you'll get there, basically.
Yeah.
And it's different
pain
for
neuroscience.
everyone.
Yeah. And pain neuroscience education is a very key component to healing, understanding that, how the brain works, and will reduce those fear centers in the brain, so that the pain goes down as well. As the fear goes down, the pain goes down. And this is also why when people read a MindBody book or a Dr. Sarno TMS book, they have this, quote unquote book cure, because their nervous system is just so regulated by and flooded with all this, these like anti-inflammatory ways of just understanding that the body is safe, and then the fear goes down, right? As you understand that you're okay.
Yeah, there's different ways of explaining it. So you just kind of explained it in another way. It's feeling safe in your body. So letting your nervous system know that you're safe. So that's another way. A lot of people also talk about nervous system dysregulation and its opposite, regulation. And that's the key as well in this kind of work. It's to get your nervous system regulated to feel safe in your life and in your body if you have symptoms. And it gets, it takes some practice to realize and to really embody the idea that you're safe despite having pain. But once you do, the pain will slowly diminish and go away. And that's how it works. I know it sounds, for some people, it might sound like it's too good to be true, but we've seen it over and over again as practitioners. So I guess that's why we're both so passionate about this, right? And I think both of our approaches, are focused on education first, I guess, right?
Yeah, exactly. And fear is very insidious, and it can be disguised as other things too. And even just being preoccupied by pain or catastrophizing, the way we think about pain. Even though you might think like, I don't feel scared, I'm annoyed by it. Well, that's frustration, and that, that keeps symptoms fired as well. So, fear is very complex, and this sort of fear mechanism that's keeping the pain stuck in the pain fear cycle can can be, through these thought habits or avoidance behaviors and thinking like, oh, I can't bend this way, so it's very sneaky how it creeps into our
Yes.
psyche. Yeah.
Oh, yes. You've touched on a few other important points. And I mean, we could go on forever, right? Yes, your daily habits, your behaviors, they reflect your fears. So
Yeah.
these things are all involved in mind-body recovery. And this is what we teach people. We teach the science, but then also we teach them to be aware of their own thought processes, their own habits that might be feeding the symptoms. And for those people who are not severely upset by symptoms or not very scared, but who might get occasional symptoms, so the occasional back pain, the hardest part is to get them to realize that there is a connection between maybe certain life events and that back pain, that they're not broken, because some people accept that there's something wrong with their back or with their body, and they just go on living life accepting that sometimes they're going to get this debilitating back pain or whatever, or leg pain or sciatica, that's also not great, because if they had the knowledge, then they could be living without this burden, right?
Yeah, and that's a good point. Just because it's short-lived or acute doesn't mean that it's not mind-body or neuroplastic. A lot of people get offended by the term chronic, and they say, well, oh, I don't have chronic pain. It's not all the time. I just throw my back out every once in a while. No, like, are you actually throwing it out? It's the same thing applies. Like, all pain will actually start out as acute if you think about it. It's short moment in time, but then for some people it's just on all the time. But you can have pain that's coming and going that's still mind body generated. For the most part, it still will be all mind body unless you have had a significant injury or something dangerous going on.
Yeah, I think that's really the point I wanted to communicate today, is for people to be more aware, to get you, the audience, to think about your own symptoms, if you have them, if you have occasional symptoms, or if you have chronic symptoms, and to think that, let me have a look at how my symptoms behave. Could there be a link between my emotional state and my symptoms? How am I responding to them? Do I still think that my body is damaged, and so on and so forth? And I can promise you, if you really look into the TMS mind-body syndrome approach, you will find your answers. What we're talking about applies to close to 90% of chronic symptoms. So
that's right.
That's huge, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And that's a relief, knowing that this is possible for everybody. You're a human being, you have a nervous system, and you can heal. That is the message.
Definitely. Okay, so before we conclude, Scotty, did you want to share with how you're working with people right now and what you're offering right now?
Yeah, so I offer one-to-one coaching, and I could be found at How to Heal Chronic Pain on Instagram, across all social media platforms. So feel free to message me there. And again, I am a graduate of the MindBody Food Institute. It was an amazing certification to be a part of as a holistic life coach, mind-body practitioner. And I stand behind that program, and of course Miriam's program, the TMS practitioner course at MindBody Food Institute as well. So if you're interested in it, I'm definitely encouraging you to do that, because it will be well worth it.
Thanks. And speaking of the TMS program, so yes, basically I am the lecturer of the TMS MindBody Practitioner program. Like Scotty, I took the MindBody Practitioner certification, and then together with Vicky, we designed this course that specializes and focuses more on helping people overcome chronic symptoms. So it's a little bit more specific for people who are interested in healing chronic symptoms. So Yes, so we have students from all over the world. And again, the course gets you to implement the approach on yourself first if you still have any chronic issues. Because I believe that, you know, the best way to learn is to actually experience the journey for yourself. Which doesn't mean it's not, you know, it's not relevant for people who don't have chronic pain, because we all have certain issues and we can all do with some emotional regulation. But yes, that's basically it. So that's called the TMS, the Mind-Body Syndrome TMS practitioner course, and it's delivered by the Mind-Body Food Institute. Okay.
That's beautiful.
Yeah, anything you'd like to add, Scotty, or?
Well, I think that's good. I think, just that sending that message out there to people, you know, that there is hope. And, you know, if I can do it, you can too.
Amazing.
It's entirely possible. Yeah.
I second that.
Thank you so much. This has been a great chat. Yeah. And thanks for watching, everyone.
Yeah. And thank you for being with us, Scotty.